Good evening, Sarasota Camera Club. First, I'd like to tell you I feel honored to be asked to judge a competition for a club with such talented artists. Secondly, as we go through the images, of course, attention will be paid to and also referenced to critiquing terms such as composition, lighting, focus, background, expression, impact, etc., which I'm sure you're all familiar. My goal as always as a judge is to be honest, fair, and non-biased. It doesn't matter whatever the subject may be, the genre, how the presentations or whatever. I hope you sense and feel that as we go along, and especially at the end of this competition. Also, I just want to make reference to and remind Sarasota Club members, which I know they are also aware, that they abide and adhere to the Florida Camera Club Council, also known in the short formed as F3C. And as print director, I know the rules by heart. Of course, I've done this for a little over 3 years. And for those who may not be familiar, new members or others that may need review, if you go to www.f3c.org and go to the competitions tab, click on it, go down to rules and regulations. They are there for your view, for you to view and review so that you become familiar with them, because they may be referenced during this competition. And before those rules, again, www.f3c.org under competitions, rules and regulations. And of course, we have both print and digital competitions. So the rules are there, and there's very, very limited difference between the two. So with that being said, I'm going to start with a smile, and I hope everybody ends with a smile and they appreciate and consider my judging and evaluations fair, square, honest, and the best that I can do. Thank you, and we're ready to begin. I see digital color Monday, October 25th, 2021. Beginner intermediate. Oh, that's not
our first entry, double-breasted cormorant family.
I'm a person who really likes to see titles that coincide with the image being presented, and this one does. One thing I have found that I did notice here in the Sarasota Camera Club was, and other camera clubs as well, it's not just limited here, but many times people will title their image with exactly what is in the image, and chances are judges know that. I'm not saying it's totally a bad thing, but when you get something catchy as a title, it certainly will resonate with the judge, because that's either the first thing they read in digital or the first thing they hear with a print competition. So I just thought something like, even though I think this title is more than adequate, of course, I just thought something like, Mom, where's dinner? Because these little double-crested cormorants are really like almost, just staring the mom down, waiting for food. This is a hard photo to get. Baby birds always want to eat. We know that. And of course, with that being said, just the presentation, the position of their heads, certainly evokes impact for this image. I think this image is well presented. The only thing I had done that I thought might improve it, when I had it on my screen on the right-hand side, and when I'm on my bigger computer screen, I do this, I cropped on the right and a little bit off the bottom, and it actually drew you more right into this cormorant family. I like this image. I enjoyed seeing it, and I scored this a 14.
Almost horse heaven.
Almost horse heaven. To me, there's an interesting expression on the horse in the forefront, and actually both horses. The one in the back is inquisitive looking as well. It's a very calming scene. There's nice separation of the foreground to the background, and the background pasture fence does serve as a divider between the foreground, middle ground, and the sky or the background. I thought maybe a lower angle taking this shot would improve it. And I also thought that if the forefront horse, if his ears were above and part of his head, the tree line, it would be more pronounced and you would go to that immediately. And I also thought that if you were to step to the right as a photographer and get a little more distance between the two horses or different perspective, that would certainly enhance the overall image itself. Good image. This I scored a 13.
Jack, what is your scoring criteria?
The scoring criteria is, impact, composition.
I'm sorry. The range. Is it?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, according,
yeah,
F3C, we coincide with that here in Sarasota. Well, all the clubs, I belong to 4 clubs, and we all adhere to their rules. And it's from 1 to 20, with 20 being the highest, of course.
Okay.
Well, 0 or 1 being the lowest. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Classic MG is the next image.
Okay. Classic MG. I like the shadows and the shines on this picture of this vehicle in the photo. It certainly is a different perspective than many times we see. You hear judges often say that you should take a car that's stationary on an angle from like a 45-degree angle. I thought this perspective from above was great. The red color is great. I thought this image might be a little improved, as I found it to be somewhat unbalanced a bit, especially with the headlight. I felt like on the left, you get to see the entire headlight. The right headlight was cut off. And I also thought maybe seeing the full top of the grille, not necessarily the engine or whatever, would also add enhancement to the overall impact of this image. And I scored this a 13.
Next image is Sarasota Bay from Selby Gardens.
Sarasota Bay from Selby Gardens. This is a nice, familiar scene with very good composition. Most of us that live in this area are familiar with it, and it's often, very often photographed. I found this image, well, actually, let me say a couple more things. I like the fact that there were birds in the water, even though they're small. I think they were an added plus and bonus. I thought maybe, which you can't change these things sometimes, the rock or whatever in the lower right quadrant bottom was not a big distraction. It's as it was. But the main concern I had with this was the image appears to be way oversaturated. The color is way more intense than one would see naturally. So that's a processing issue. With F3C, color images, monochrome images, and of course, documentary images must look, according to the rules, natural and realistic. I think this gives somewhat of a surreal appearance. While I love the composition and certainly what's being photographed, I think it needs to be toned down a bit. And I scored this a 12.
Splendor at Gibbs Garden.
Okay, here we go. Splendor at Gibbs Gardens. Okay, again, it's not a problem the way it says Splendor at Gibbs Gardens, GA, which I assume that means Georgia. As I mentioned earlier, titles don't make or break an image, but many times they say limit the title to 3 words or less, no more than 5. as a judge, when we look at images like this, and I'm just going to start with this title, you really don't, it's not necessary to say exactly where it was or the state it was in or whatever. I mean, again, catchy titles are ones that, really grab a judge's attention initially. And like I said, it's not make or break, but like, yellow veins and a red leaf or something, that garners attention immediately may enhance a score just a bit. I just felt this was it was nicely done, nicely presented. I like how it was coming from the upper left corner, heading down. I'm a person who likes simplistic images, the basic type. And the issue I have with this, really the main issue I have with this, and the reason for the score is that it's very, very out of focus. And there's some image of some evidence of processing. But I just think, if this were in focus, the simplicity is beautiful. It certainly would have scored higher. I gave this or scored this a 10, mainly because of the focus issue.
Next image is called Feeding Time.
Okay, feeding time. You gotta love the challenge of shooting hummingbird pictures, that's for sure. I love the tongue out on this little bird that's flying towards his feeder. It's like anybody who goes out birding, they know what a challenge it is to get hummingbirds. The eye is in pretty good focus. The catch light, I like a bit of the blurred wings. These birds are speedy and quick, so blurred wings are not out of the ordinary. And some judges think they have to be tack sharp and no blur. I actually appreciate the blur here. I think to me, to improve this image, I would have liked to have seen this, although I know not always possible, but generally, when looking at images like this, if the bird is going to a natural type feeder, like a flower, trumpet vine, or whatever, it certainly enhances the image and gives more impact. Many times red flowers do attract them. And, like I said, it's a great image. It's just that, even the red feeder seems to take precedence over the size of the hummingbird and such. So with that being said, I scored this a 13.
Next image is Nande Parakeet.
This is an image that I really, really enjoyed watching and viewing and critiquing. Again, I'm going to start off with, and you probably will hate me by the end of the competition, but hopefully not. Titles are important, and most time judges, especially here in Florida, will know that this is a Nande parakeet. Something that would really, in my opinion, resonate with the judges is something like headed straight down, baby. And, because you don't usually see the wing position of these birds like this. Sometimes you don't even get the opportunity to get a picture or an image or capture of a bird like this. The head is tacked sharp. The eye is totally focused. He's on a mission, good composition with a good intent and look on the bird. I mean, it's hard to catch this shot. The feather blur in the front, the left wing, I think could be sharpened a bit, a little more detail there, but this is an image that really resonated with me. I scored this a 15.
Paracel Paradise.
Okay, here I see a beautiful sunset. I see high and low parasailers. And, it's there's complementary colors here. There's warm, there's the blue of the water, there's a foreground, and the background is silhouetted with especially the lower parasail as well as the upper parasail. I think to improve this image, I might suggest cropping the image on the right hand side and pulling it closer, and if even necessary, having a single subject. But I know you wanted to see the two. Many times, I know myself included, taking pictures of kite surfers and parasailers. When you have them in the distance and such open space, like on the right where I suggested the crop, you sort of lose, the idea or some impact with doing that. While it's a great image, it certainly tells a good story. I think cropping and possibly on the right and possibly even lowering part of the sky would enhance this overall. And I gave this or scored this a 12.
Badlands Rainbow.
Okay, let me call that. All right, I see a nice rainbow shot here. Good texture in the rocks, foreground shadows, well-lit scene. I think this image might be improved, in my opinion, by having the total rainbow appear as it does on both sides. The rainbow seems muted, and I know it was probably behind clouds, as it appeared when shot. But overall, the background with this appears a little bit muddy, looking in places. And if it could be, dodged or even brought out by some other means so that the rainbow really became the forefront along with the foreground and that in the middle ground and the clouds on the top as the background, it would be greatly enhanced. I scored this a 14.
Red-winged blackbird.
Now, where is the red? And I circled all the titles. Oh. Sorry about this. Oh, I found it here. Okay. Good composition here. Again, with the title, you're just stating what it is. Chances are the judge will know this. I looked at this, image, and I immediately thought of this bird shouting at somebody or doing or demanding some attention somehow. Maybe a title like "Get Over Here," might be a little more appropriate rather than just naming what was in the image. I like these shots in the natural environment. It's following the rule of thirds. I felt this image may be improved with a little better focus, especially on the eyes, and maybe cloning out some spots, like, even though this isn't a natural nature shot, the little leaf going in front of its tail and so on and so forth, and maybe the one sticking up just to the right of his left foot, pointing to, his beak, although I would consider that to also be a leading line. I thought it was a good image, and I scored this a 13.
Carolina is calling.
That's on the first. Okay, I think everybody who's ever experienced it, certainly those that have moved from north down to Florida, just love seeing fall foliage. It's just one of the wonders of nature during the fall season. I didn't think the foliage was peaking in this photo, which sometimes when we head places, we sometimes anticipate and don't always find that. I do get a good sense of depth perception here in this photo, but I thought this could be improved, of course, if you were able to wait a few days, week, or whatever to get back out there. And also, if in the foreground, it seems cropped a little bit tight. I would have liked to have seen some leeway, even if it was the pasture or the grasslands leading into this, grove of trees, and maybe a little more definition in the clouds. And sometimes for perspective, if you're there with someone else, maybe even possibly having a human near one of the trees to let them know how big these trees are, and what they look like, and how small a human can be next to them. I enjoyed this photo. I just thought maybe with those enhancements, it would serve some improvement, and I scored this a 12.
Rebecca in Mink.
Okay, Rebecca, where are you? Oh, here it is. And I circled, like I said. Okay, I like this beautiful shot of this model. Nicely focused, catch light in the eyes. I love the natural hair, just hanging down. It's overall, it's a great shot. I thought this image might be improved. I found some hot spots of light on the neck, on her right side, our left, and also our shoulders have the shoulder blade, the bone, extending out. And I think the bright light or hot spot on her left shoulder sort of draws your attention away from the model's face. The only other thing I might add is the mink seems a little overwhelming. I might have cropped it on the bottom. I wouldn't have found it necessary, and if it was more like a headshot, just under the crisscross of the mink, because the mink wants to draw you away from her face somewhat. So while I think it's an excellent portrait, I just thought those improvements might serve it well a little better, and I scored it a 15.
Tuscany Sunset.
Okay, Tuscany Sunset. I see nice contrast in the sky, darks, light colors, interesting cloud formations, some of the sky trails and such. I think to improve this image, I may have, and for added interest, of course, and perspective, that there would be a little more detail in the land formation. And again, I know it's not always possible, but if there were even one or two humans, in the distance, just to give some perspective, because as presented, while it's a nice image, even though I don't see as much detail in the bottom, I just think having a couple people or even another tree or something would have added a little more impact to this image. And I scored this this one was Tuscany Sunset 11.
Dolomite Sunset.
Okay, another sunset one here, Dolomite. All right. Okay, Dolomite Sunset. Really, I think it's a superb composition. Everything in good focus, nice light on the mountains, and the rock formations, or dolomites, I guess they may be called. I'm not even absolutely sure. It's a soothing scene. It's nice to look at. The grass between the buildings, I just think it's a plus, and the roads and leading lines and so on and so forth. I thought this image might be improved if, and I'm not sure, but for some reason, the girl standing on that, little land bump there, or mound, I should say, somehow appears like she's not real. Okay. Could have been, it just seems like she may have been inserted into the photo. Um, I noticed some little bit of brushing or something near her feet, but that could be a natural occurrence. I also thought that while the lines of, let's say, the lighter color, the warmer color, led down to different parts of taking you into the image, I thought the line on the right hand side, which started out as a gully, right in the lower right hand third, but that line going up sort of draws your eye away a little bit from what's presented in the entire picture. So overall, I think it's a wonderful image, and I thought it was well done. But those things that I thought might improvement would be my suggestions, and I scored this a 15.
Another balloon bites the dust.
Now, when I saw this image, I smiled right away. This image, to me, in my opinion, has good focus. I mean, I really like the title, Another Balloon Bites the Dust. Of course, it's not a real shooting. So I thought the title was perfect for it. I think there's exceptional expression on this man's face, the cowboy's face, especially his eyes. It was perfect timing. Um, the title, like I said, was good. And even though it was entitled A Balloon Bites the Dust, I'm wondering if there was actually something he was shooting at, as part of a rodeo or whatever it might have been. Overall, I just thought that, it just held my interest and had me smiling just practically the whole time looking at it. The only thing I wrote as a little suggestion, maybe a little bit more room on the left, not absolutely necessary, and a little crop off the right, but I think it's just well done as presented, and I scored this a 17.
Nestor horn at sunset.
Here we go. Okay, I find this to have an appealing composition. I like the foreground with the vegetation, the middle ground, and between the the mountains or the rock formations there, and also the background of the sky. I like the drama that's in the sky. I even felt almost like there was a volcanic feel to just above the peaks there. I just thought it had good texture, in the foreground, the greenery, and so on and so forth. I felt to improve this image, to darken in the foreground the initial mound there of grass. Actually, the first couple on the left there and all sort of seem so lightened that they draw you away from the rest of the image. They garner attention. They want you to look at them. So I think maybe a little bit of burning and darkening those, especially the one in the foreground, just at the bottom, so that you'll just sort of take your eyes and encompass and appreciate and pull in the whole image would help it. I also considered maybe even a crop. I used like a ruler or whatever on my computer screen, so that you would just see almost the tip of that first mound. And also you could even consider just doing that, or even do top and bottom. And I thought this would be well presented as a panoramic as well. Just my suggestions and thoughts. I scored this a 14.
The tower.
Okay, the tower, where are you? I see you. Okay, I think this shot has very, very nice vertical lines. I think the sky is beautiful in it. I like the tones of green in it as well. It's a nice tranquil scene. I believe it's Bach Tower. I could be wrong, but that's what I was thinking. Something many of us are familiar with. I I found somewhat that the lower part of, I can't even remember right, lower part of some of the vegetation was a bit maybe out of focus. Also, the pond greenery, especially in the lower right, was trying to pull my eye away from the tower. And I know the maker naturally left it there because by, cropping on the bottom, you're actually going to crop off part of the tower reflection. I think if that could be burned a little bit, as well as just above that, just with the, there's like a spray just perfectly vertical above the lower right vegetation in the water, would improve this image. I actually scored this a 14.
Coexisting.
Because I thought this was a cool title. I see good focus in the butterfly as well as the, I don't know what exactly that plan is. I did know, but I have forgotten. In any case, I liked the butterfly not being tattered. Butterflies don't live a long time. I think it's like 2 or 3 weeks. And also this butterfly basically is in, good form, which is also a plus. I liked that there was dark contrast of the butterfly on the lightly colored flower. I thought it might just a little bit to be tightly cropped, not a deal breaker. I thought I would have left a little more space around, and even if possibly the stem of the flower was from the lower corner, although that's not an absolute necessity, of course. And the only other thing was I thought I might just add a touch of contrast to the flower only, just a little bit, especially at its base. And possibly with this one, and then again, this is only my opinion. I don't condone having strokes around the image, but I think with a stroke around this image, possibly in black, it would have really drawn you in to the subjects in this photo. For this coexisting, loving the title, I scored it a 14.
Kinderdijk windmill.
I think that was earlier in the beginning. Let me see here. We got Kinderdijk windmill. How could you not love a picture of a windmill? This is a beautiful windmill. Definitely following the rule of thirds. Nice crop, nice green color in the vegetation. I like the contrast of the green and yellow at the bottom. Overall, it really, really is a great image, including the houses or the, whatever they would be in the Netherlands or wherever. To me, the thing that really, really, I couldn't get around this image having such a blown out sky. And I realize that sometimes when we are in these places traveling, you might not get a blue sky on the day that you're there. To keep things natural and realistic looking, if you're really good at processing, even according to F3C rules, if the sky were replaced and you can't tell that it's been done, and it's natural and realistic looking, it would qualify for color, as would this. The sky, just with no detail, no clouds, is such a deterrent, for this beautiful image, that I scored it a 13. I really, really did like that image.
A closer view.
Okay, a closer view. I think that's the first one. Yes, that was the first one. Okay, I really like seeing good texture on a building, which again, I think this may be Bach Tower. It has a nice reflection, good contrast, nice, contrast with the lights and darks. Um, Overall, I really like this image. I think, and what I did on my computer screen, in my opinion, to enhance, I actually cropped it vertically on the right and left side. And by doing that, I was drawn right into the tower and the reflection. I would have darkened the bright spots on the trees by burning or whatever on the right. And also the spot on in the water, if you look just below the vegetation on the middle ground where we have the horizon, there's like some little parts of the greenery reflected that are kind of bright. I would just darken those as well. But the main thing other than that would be the right and left vertical crop. I think would enhance this immensely, in my opinion. But I really like the image. I scored it a 15.
Nectar is oh so good.
Nectar. Oh, so good. Okay. Again, I'm assuming this was shot, in a natural environment, because that certainly would, well, it's always difficult to get the hummingbird shots anyway, but I know sometimes they have opportunities where people are set up to do different things. I just think, like I said, this was shot in a natural environment. It was a great catch. I love the complementary colors of the iridescent green on these hummingbirds with the red flowers or fluorescent, whatever they may be called. I just thought great action stop. I love the expression in both of the eyes of the hummingbirds. The one on the right looks like he's peering down at the one on the left, like, are we both here? And what are you going to do? With the focus on the hummingbird on the left, looking intently at the nectar he's about to feast on. I like the focus and, of course, the background as presented. The only thing I might suggest for improvement is that there are a couple hot spots in the image, a little bit on the right hand side behind the right hummingbird, and I probably would have cloned out the little leaf, at the top. Not a deal breaker there, and it seemed cropped a bit tight. I would have left a little more space as the birds flew up, just underneath. Overall, I was just very impressed with the shot, and I scored it a 16.
Shell ginger.
Shelled ginger. This is a nice shot of beautiful flowers. Nice midpoint, almost midpoint opening of that floral. Looks like a flower with his tongue sticking out or whatever. The problem that I had with this, for as much as I admired it and liked the shot, there could have been some cloning on the lower left. I think that leaf is a little intrusive there. The fallen bud, I may have darkened a little bit. But the problem mainly with this is the fact that it would not qualify in color in F3C. Too much processing has been done. It would have been mandatory to place it in the creative category based on the painterly texture and things on the flowers. So with that being said, I scored it an 11.
Focus stacked sunflower.
Focus that. Here we go. Okay, I know you're going to say I'm like a broken record with the titles. This is a very nice image. The title, again, is just disclosing. We know that's a sunflower, that's okay. But you're telling the judge I focus stacked this sunflower. While that is okay for your own editing or for your own record keeping and all, just mentioning that to a judge would not be something that would more than likely get you more points. Like, something like, sunflower burst or something like that would, in my opinion, add some more appeal to the actual image as a first glance reading the title. I see nice lines, nice shapes in the petals of that sunflower. There's a texture here, which is nice. Beautiful light. The sunflower, I noticed like a vignette, and the background is textured. I thought it may be shot against a textured wall or whatever. It could have been a background replacement, but in any case, it looks as though it's natural, so that would be okay in Sarasota and F3C. To improve this image, I think the background, I would still have it a little bit darker, even with the vignette, because the darker background would certainly pull the yellow of those flower petals out for the person who's viewing the image to see. I mean, I love the inside, the texture of those little blossoms on the inside of the sunflower. And the only other thing I thought might improve it was on the leaf in the lower left quadrant. I may have cut that short. I tried it myself, like and cloned out maybe all the way up to about a third of the way up from the bottom stem there, heading up on that curve. And I just thought that gave it a little more balance, as opposed to I don't think that leaf hanging down on the left really adds to the impact of the image, I guess I should say best. Overall, I enjoyed this image. I think the suggestions I had mentioned may help. I scored this a 13.
Pretty in pink.
Where are you? I'm not seeing it. I should be able to find these easier now because we're getting down there at the bottom. Pretty. I know I did this because I remember doing it. Oh, here it is. Okay. I love this shot of this eastern tiger swallowtail butterfly. The colors are vivid, beautiful, beautiful. The petals of the flower, not sure, they looked a little, I guess I've seen those flowers frequently, but I haven't really seen them look like that. I don't know if it's a processing, issue or whatever. I think the contrast is good with the butterfly. It could be a little sharper in the head area of the butterfly, but overall, it's a great photo. I see wonderful detail in the wings, and like I said, the color is amazing. I think this is very tightly cropped. Again, I mean, the maker chose a square, which is okay, but I think that I might have allowed a little bit more space, not an absolute must, around especially the top. And overall, great image, and it resonated well with me. I scored it a 50.
Falls in the woods.
Falls in the Woods. Okay, Falls in the Woods. To me, when I saw this image, I immediately fell in love with the beauty of this scene here. Nice warm colors with the yellows and browns. We have the cool colors too of the water. I like the slow shutter speed so that the water just slowly and like silk just goes down into the pond found at the or the area in the bottom of the frame. I love the use of the slow shutter and all that. With the lighting, I was looking at that lighting coming from the back, and while I would see it coming down, to the falls in the upper, left-hand quadrant, it seems very, very bright on the front of that rock, there, and even to the right of it. So if the sun were setting and it were back there, I don't see that lighting as being so bright in the front. If it was high overhead light, like an early part of the day, we wouldn't have seen the light, that orange glow in the back. The other thing I thought was possibly cropping just a little bit, just the slightest little bit off the bottom for that one shadow in the lower right hand corner. I did love this image. It appealed to me. I scored it a 15.
Dahlia standing tall.
Dahlia standing tall. I see good color, pastels here, the yellows, fresh flowers, growing. I'm assuming in the wild. It could have been in a nursery. I don't know. The sky is certainly nice and blue, which also adds to it. I like how we're looking up perspective-wise. That dahlia certainly takes its place in the world, and in that group of flowers for sure. With other flowers just starting to bloom, reaching for the sky as well. I found this image to be a little bit cluttered and busy, even though I like the perspective looking up. And I thought it could be improved, possibly to step back as a photographer. I'm not sure exactly what was there, but with it being a little cluttered and busy, while I liked it, with the perspective, I gave it a score, or scored it a 13.
Okay, that ends the color category. Digital
Thank
creative.
you. Okay.
Hydra.
Yes. Okay. This is creative. All right. And this is human hydra. This image, I'm going to give a bit of a critique on it. It certainly is creatively done and well done. However, due to the nudity and the F3C rules that Sarasota and all the clubs to which I belong follow, this would be ineligible for presentation in a competition. So with that being said, I find it very creatively done, well done. I would have to give it a no score due to that ineligibility factor of nudity.
Photographer and camera show.
Well, I see a Canon user here. And getting creative with the shell of that camera. I see a I know the photographer, the maker, I can assume, and I can see like a camera, placed on his face. And I thought that was a creative thought and a creative idea. I thought it was an interesting way to add to portraiture. Here, I thought, well, I like the idea. presented as a creative image. I think that certainly his face in the lens opening was nice, but the blending of placing that camera on his face. Oh, I'm sorry, that's Alexa in the background. I thought the camera could have been blended and actually extracted a bit better, you know, when he took it out of the original photo. As if you notice across the bottom that there's like, you can tell it was placed onto the photo. With a wonderful blending, I just think it would have increased the total overall impact of this image. And I gave or scored this a 12. Excuse me, I'm gonna.
Artist, H.R. Geiger's Barn on Drugs.
Okay. HR. HR, I knew this.
Artist,
Artist. All right.
He was the one that inspired the Alien movies, sets, and the creatures.
Okay. No, this image, here we go again. Crucify me, crucify me. The title is way too long. The artist, HR. A judge is going to say, I'm not sure what HR means. Does that mean high resolution? And you don't always have to understand, but it just seems a bit long. Geiger's Brain on Drugs. Something that, in my opinion, again, it's only my opinion, that would have, you know, more impact would just be Brain on Drugs, exclamation point, or something like that. But that's just a suggestion I have. It is a very well presented image. I think it's cool. I mean, it has high impact, in my opinion. I like how, you know, the branches are from the center point branching out and up. I like the verticals of the tree, the face in the upper middle section, and even the foliage on each side. And again, this can be like mirror reflection. I understand that. And then with the warms colors on the bottom of the image. I mean, I just kept looking at this image and really, really enjoyed looking at it. And I thought that, you know, creativity is in the eyes of the beholder. It really resonated with me. I just thought that it was a wonderful image. I scored this a 17.
Here's Looking at You.
Here's Looking at You. Ah, the creative eye sees, even in a flower. I thought this was really nicely done. I really like that swirling reflection. Personally, I don't know how to do that myself, but I think it certainly adds to an image and gives it impact. You know, it was nicely done there. I thought that with the eye, and maybe I'm missing it in the swirl image, because I tried looking. I would have liked to seen that reflected as well in that swirl there. I also thought to improve the image, what I just mentioned about the eye in the water, and the eye seemed like a little bit cut out and not totally blended. I thought it could be blended a little better into the flowers. Even though there were 4, I know the rule of not the rule of thirds, the rule of odds. People like seeing, you know, 3s and only 2s with pairs or couples, but the 4 flowers didn't bother me. It was a little busy and a few distractions in the background, especially on the top of the flower with the eye. And I did enjoy this image. I appreciated the creativity of the maker. I scored this image a 13.
Surrounded by Trees.
Surrounded by trees. Okay, here, I know more and more, we look at each image individually. I like the title. And the swirl is becoming more and more popular of a way to present creative images. um, I can't say that they don't have impact, but I do feel the more they're presented that sometimes, judges look at these like, we see these a lot now. I mean, I try to look at each image individually and, don't try to really think about how they were created. But I think, the swirls of the trees and the branches, tree trunks and all are nice and they draw you to the center. Um, I'm not sure if in the center, just a little bit to the right, if that was a pavilion or something that was part of the scene on the ground. In any case, while I did enjoy looking at this image and even enjoyed the little bit of dizziness I got, looking at it, I thought, the blur, everything included, I thought a score of 11 would be a fair assessment.
No parking.
No parking. Here, very similar to this previous image. I like the swirl, as I said, in the previous image, I like it here. I was trying to figure out, and in creative, we don't have to know the intention of the maker. Really don't have to know the intention of the maker at all. Most times we can gather something from that. I was wondering, it did spike some curiosity. What is this? Is this a parking garage? Is this somehow a swirl done with, it could even be something like, a parking meter or a lampshade or whatever. I wasn't sure. I was fascinated with it. I just felt like the spiral effect, although inviting, seems to be just very common now and very widely presented in the creative category. So I scored this an 11.
Miracle of flight.
Miracle of flight. Now, to me, this painterly image of a bird, and it is a tern. I'm not sure if it's a royal tern or whatever, but it really offers, flight, an appealing flight, and position of the bird. I feel there's some nice, cool presentations in the blues of the clouds, and you even see warmth with the browns and the lower cloud formations, and that is exactly how the maker of this image really wanted to present it. To me, the whole cloud burst, for improvement purposes, above the bird might not be as effective. The white, I don't mind just above the bird, but all the I'm going to call it unused space. Some judges refer to it as dead space. I think there's a lot of empty space there that's not being utilized to add to the overall impact of this image. So with that being said, I gave this or scored this image a 14. I like the painterly effect.
Mirror image.
Mirror image. Now, this is something we see, not always, but we see somewhat often as judges. I like the serenity and calming, effect that this image gives, a sort of introspection type that makes the viewer think, just like the maker did, both creatively and there's some sort of story going on here. The use of color and mono I found to be interesting. I also found it to be interesting that in the picture of the woman there seems to be the word like maybe hair spirals, the little cut off, and then I look around and I actually see spirals in the lower left case on the left hand side of the viewer or whatever it is. I thought that this image lacked a little bit of a wow factor. The face and the eyes, while pretty well focused in the mirror, were not really focused in the actual human standing. And of course, he was a human in the mirror as well, but the actual human posing. and then the right-hand third of the image. I thought it was image in turn. I mean, it was interesting in terms of the thought processes and how the maker wanted to present, you know, the mirror image of himself creatively. I gave, and the use of black and white and color. I scored this image a 12.
Pop-up album.
Pop-up out. I really like the presentation of this image. I mean, it's an old, like, seems to appear to be an old photograph, like one of the Polaroid types or whatever we used to use. And I liked how the pages are flipped, you know, in the album. I also liked how the maker decided to have her skating out of the image. I know it's been done in creative images before, but I thought it was very appropriate here. I actually thought, and this was just a personal thought and suggestion, maybe because everything seems to be lost in the background, maybe a fringed, slight fringed image around the edge of this photo might complement the fringed image of that old photo that she's skating out of, and add a border. You know, overall, I really like this image, and I scored it a 15.
Ballet Blossom.
Okay. To me, this is a creative image for sure, and sort of, in my opinion, it's sort of like creativity defined. I really like this image. It has a catchy title, Ballet Blossom, and it's very well done. Very, very well done. I'm not sure, but I wondered why, just out of curiosity, the maker chose all blue. I mean, the ballet dancers or blossoms here are blue. You know, the flowers blue, the background is blue. While I'm not saying I would be totally against that, part of me just wanted to see some sort of complementary color. We always think of flowers, we think of their interiors, and that certainly does look like a blossom, their heads and their arms intertwined. Usually the center of a flower has, and if we want to use a complementary color, let's say yellow, and then maybe a stroke around the outside. Not necessarily the stroke, but just seeing all this blue, I just thought we needed a little bit of contrast other than the single color. I love the image. I thought it could be enhanced by those suggestions. I gave it, or scored it, a 17.
The butterfly effect.
Now this image, I mean, when I looked through all the images at least 2 to 3 times before I even thought about judging them. Every time I looked at this image, there's something about it that I just kept gravitating to. I mean, the idea, it is very creatively done. The idea of the maker, and I'm assuming he or she took all the pictures of the butterflies. I'm a lepidopterist. That's a person who collects, studies butterflies and moths. I had a collection in New Jersey that would, you know, make your socks fly off. But anyway, so I can name all but that green and brown one, you know, that's just below to the left of the monarch. And of course, there's one in the stained glass, which I think is very well an integral part of this image. As I looked at it, I mean, my eyes kept going around, and I know in the PSA, the Photographic Society of America, they said, you know, you don't always have to know exactly why somebody included things or whatever, but I just couldn't stop looking at this image. I mean, you know, I love the butterflies. I won't name them here for you because it'll take too much time. But at one point, if I find out who the maker is, I can tell them what they are. In any case, I like the stroke. It complements that green on that butterfly. It complements the green in the stained glass. If there's one thing that I would suggest to improve, I would move the position just a little bit of the, it's a black swallowtail down there in the lower left-hand corner down, and also move the monarch in the upper right-hand corner right, so as not to see the little green speck of the frame coming from their wings. I mean, we know the frame's going to be there, but if the monarch covered the upper right-hand corner frame and the lower black swallowtail, the corner frame at the bottom left, I mean, and I'm not going to use that as a crutch. I just think that's a good suggestion. I love this image. Kept looking at it. I scored it a 17.
Bayfront Park Sunset.
Okay, babe. So, here we go. Okay. I really like the vintage look that was applied to this image. I think it works for this image. I think that the use of the warm colors, across the central portion of the frame, along with in the building, the top of the building. I like the cool colors of blue at the top and even the bottom in the water. I mean, overall, this image definitely appealed to me. And I also thought to improve this image, I liked how the bridge is leading you from the building to the outside of the frame on the left. But I thought in the upper left-hand corner at the top, there seems to be somewhat of, and it might be the edge of the frame they were using or whatever, something that just sort of draws your attention to. And also, the vignette, I'm sure was purposely done on the edges, but, or it could have actually been part of rocks or water in the lower left-hand corner. But they say when you vignette, you should make it equal all the way around. So with that being said, I like this image quite a bit. I think those improvements may help. I scored it a 15. Nice reflection also.
Miramachi Cabin.
Miramachi Cabin. Okay. I like the serenity and calming effect that this image offers. It appears as a nicely printed canvas, and then in looking closely, it could be a canvas, it could be cross stitch type thing image. I thought that was kind of neat, something that you would definitely might like to see hanging on the wall in your home or whatever. I thought that the image offers pleasurable viewing, but I was not sensing a totally creative effect. There's creativity in everything, of course. I guess an example would be the smoke coming out of the stack. I don't know how that was made in the image, but it appears to be blue, as opposed to gray. I mean, overall, it's a pleasing image, and there doesn't have to be detail in the snow or whatever. Like I said, it appeared as a canvas or cross stitch type. I liked it, but I just thought that those improvements might help, and I scored it an 11.
Colors Prisms.
Colors Prisms. Now, there were beautiful colors in here. So I like the title and this hot air balloon. You can see all primary, secondary colors here. And I think that they're nicely presented, bright and striking. I like the composition. I think the balloon being off with the people in the lower third of the image was nice. Uh, I liked seeing passengers in the balloon being preoccupied. One thing I wondered about um, was why it was placed in the creative category. While we can consider it creatively presented as far as the processing, I mean, there were shadows of the balloon and all, but I didn't really see the total creativity compared to other images in the category, which I think can be a disadvantage. So to me, I would think that placing this in the color category would have allowed it to score higher. And with that being said, I scored it a 13.
Lichen on 450 million year old Canadian shield.
Everybody's going to get mad at me again. This is a pretty cool image, but that title, just like even with Craig reading it, you know, lichen on 450 million year old Canadian shield. The title is too long. Okay. You know, as I mentioned, that's the first thing the judge hears, you know, or reads in a print or digital competition. So something like ye old lichen shield, ye, ye old lichen shield. I'm not saying my titles are the best or the greatest, or you should even use them, but something like that could be more or maybe more effective. Um, I like the subdued colors and the inclusion of monochrome in this. It seems to have four rectangles presented together, or that could be how it appeared as seen when the shot was taken. It sort of has maybe like a mosaic or geometric approach or presentation to it. Uh, while interest, I do find it interesting. I do feel this image does not have a real big wow factor when competing against other images in the creative category. So, with that being said, I scored it a 12.
Anything is possible.
Anything is possible. That is certainly a way of looking at life, and it was appropriate and nice that they titled this image that. I like the use of color here and different colors. Certainly with the red and green on the left-hand side, they are definitely complementary colors. I mean, red and green wreaths at Christmas and the ribbons and so on and so forth are not just made by chance. They are absolutely complementary colors. Hence, that's why they're used, you know, at that time for that holiday. Um, I think that we almost have a surreal feel here, which is something that's good and creative, maybe even something from space. Not sure what the maker had in mind, but we really don't have to know that. To improve this image, I really feel like we have a problem with focus here. You know, I see the left-hand portion of that slinky or whatever that color thing is um, presented is not in focus, and that could have been intentional. And yet the one on the lower right-hand side and the right side of the centrally presented subject is definitely in focus. And the other thing I think is when we see, you know, those complementary reds and greens, the middle subject and then the right subject, and then to the lower, the upper right, they're sort of like nothing. So it makes you feel like you're getting a sense of possibly dead space there. While I enjoyed viewing this image, I think it could be improved or reshot in another presentation. So I scored it a 10.
Kaleidoscope.
Kaleidoscope. Okay, I found this image to have a very creative, excuse me, set and use of shapes and colors, a geometric maze of sorts presented on top of one another has certainly an abstract feel and qualities, and certainly gives, as presented, a sense of depth and perception to the image. To improve this image, I think maybe a different source. I'm not sure what might work best, but it seems like things were a little choppy. If you look in the on the right hand third, going from top to bottom, we don't have a whole lot of different colored presentations, which could have been the intent of the maker, of course. And I just think that if we had some smoother transitions, it just seems like, these were cut out, placed on a layer, unless a filter was used and presented in that format. So with that being said, I scored this a 12.
Agave blossom.
Agave blossom. I like the feel of the flowers and I mean the little buds or whatever in this flower. I like the effect. It almost appears as though these little flower buds are dropping off, or just like the flow of water down. I like that. I'm not sure if a filter was used to attain this effect, but it certainly gives the feeling of good texture, in the presentation as seen. I think there's a bit of static of entry from the left of the flower. I thought to improve that, I may, to improve the overall image, I may have color picked either one of the yellows or browns in those buds of the flower, maybe to enhance putting a stroke around it and drawing you more into the flower and subject presented. With that being said, I scored this a 13.
Okay. Documentary. The goods.
The goods. Okay, as we start this category, for those who are not totally familiar, as per F3C rules and Sarasota Camera Club rules, documentary, the main story or the moment in time presented is supposed to be the criteria for judging. Okay, there can be some slight imperfections, and you can only make global enhancements. You can crop part of the image, you can lighten or darken the whole image, but no spot checking or processing or whatever. And they must be in color. So with that being said, in this image, the goods, the good. There's good color in this image. I mean, these guys, I realize it's a reenactment or a portrayal, and they're playing the part for sure. I just didn't see maybe the position of the gentleman there. I'm not able to see, there's five guys, which the rule of odds is great, but you could really only see the expression or faces of one of them totally, profile of a couple others, but their faces are darkened, and of course you can't spot check, or dodge faces or whatever. Also, the gentleman to the left of the the chest there, the tree is growing out of his head. So I feel like that if the maker would have stepped maybe to the left or the right or whatever to get either more faces showing. And the gentleman actually, which this has nothing to do with the maker, it's not their fault. You can tell this is a total portrayal. And I mean, you can't help if they're not playing the part. It just looks like they're having fun, which is okay. But the other thing, again, stepping from a different perspective, and I do feel the crop is a little bit too tight here. The wheels in the background could be less noticeable if maybe the maker stood more to the left. And like I said, we're able to get, the faces of maybe a couple more of the subjects, and with that being said, and some things were beyond the maker's control. I do realize that. I scored this a 12.
Double decker.
Okay, double decker. This is an interesting image, and I'm just going to say these few words. I enjoyed seeing it. You don't always have to see the faces of people in an image. The double decker, that gentleman or lady on stilts, was a cool scene. And there is one gentleman facing towards the camera, but overall, the only issue with this that I'm going to mention, which is the deciding issue, is in documentary. The images must be presented in color as per F3C rules. So I cannot score this image.
Reddish egret, caught one.
He sure did. That reddish egret did catch one. I have several pictures of reddish egrets, and I've really yet to get one where that fish is just in between the, the beak of the reddish egret. This was a perfect time shot. It's hard to get shots like this. I think it appears to have been taken on somewhat of a dreary day, not much sunshine, of course. I think to improve this image, we need not such a tight crop. Okay. I think, especially not the bottom portion, but the top. You could even maybe crop a little off the bottom, add a little more to the top. I think that would improve the image. I noticed there were some halos around the top of the head and also the top beak of the reddish egret. And I didn't find that overall the head was in as good focus, especially around the eye. Now that nictitating membrane that birds close when they get near water or they're catching a fish for protection certainly couldn't be helped. That's not an issue, but the factors I mentioned, I feel would improve this image, and I gave this or scored it a 13.
The day begins.
The Okay. Oh, I have as the day begins. Okay. This tells a good story. So it is a good documentary entry. I like the texture in the water. The horizon is straight. I think to be improved, this image, the maker might consider cropping the bottom. I don't feel as though, and what I do, as I mentioned, is I will take an envelope, or a folder. I think if maybe half of the bottom water, because it doesn't really pull you into the image. If it were cropped there, it would draw you more into the ship and the sunrise coming up as the day begins. So with that being said, I scored this a 13.
Hold on.
Hold on. I really like this image. It certainly tells a good story, and that's what documentary is all about. It's in color, and there's a great story here. The moment in time was certainly captured. It might seem a little off balance, but as you're going down on those roller coaster rides, that's certainly what it is and what you're feeling. So there's tons of expression, tons of feeling, tons of impact. The subjects are all expressing their joy, fear, and all of the above, at the same time there. One of the problems I found with this image, a major problem, was it was very low resolution, and it was hard to see detail in the subject's faces, actually in the whole image. And, I couldn't tell if it was focused, even though it had high impact because of the quality of the image. I scored this a 12.
Lonely sailboat.
Okay. Now, here I was wondering, again, I'm not knocking the title, but when it said Lonely Sailboat, what ended up happening was I allowed my eyes to go through the image and try to find where the lonely sailboat was. So then I thought to myself, and these are all things that just go through your head, well, maybe it was supposed to be lonely sail boats, plural, but I'm not sure. And of course, I couldn't ask the maker. So, with that being said, I was going to say I like the diversity of color here, plenty of color in the sailboats and in the buildings as well. The sky is nice and blue. I would have liked to seen clouds there naturally, but sometimes it's not always possible. And the buildings help to frame the scene. I think that it's tightly cropped, and I don't know how much more room or if the maker was even on a boat when this was taken. But I think that if there was some more room, especially on the right hand side, so the leading lines of the boats drawing you out and with some water in front of the boats presented there would certainly help, the image overall. And also, like I said, if it weren't so busy and feeling of congestion. With this, I scored it a 13. Oh, and what I wanted to say was I thought maybe the one red and white sailboat in the lower left portion that had the mast up could have been the lonely sailboat. But then I saw several sailboats with masts in the background, so I wasn't sure. So it could have been just an error of the maker intentionally or not putting an S on the title. But overall, it had plenty of color and some appeal in this image.
Grade 1 classmate.
Okay, grade 1 classmate, our last play date was October 1939. I know you're going to know what I'm going to say. The title is definitely too long. We want them short and sweet, 3 to 5 words, make them catchy, make them initiate impact. So, vintage classmate, reflecting was just a thought that came to mind. I like the complementary colors of green and red, in this image with the tractor and the grass and foliage in the background. I like good position of the rider. He looks relaxed. He looks like he's reflecting. There's a good story being told. I think to improve this image, the tractor, to me, in my opinion, takes more of the spotlight than the actual man. But I realize tractors are of a large size, so that really couldn't be helped. And there's some expression on his face of reflecting, but I just think overall it's an image that has impact, but possibly more for the maker, since it may have been a former classmate, than the actual viewer. With that being said, I scored it a 12.
Cubans waiting for their ride.
Okay. Visiting Cuba myself, this was a scene that you would love to encounter and stumble upon. I like how there are vertical lines with the door, vertical lines with the bars on the window, horizontal lines, going across with those red shutters or terracotta shutters. I like also how the maker cropped this image across the bottom because the actual sidewalk leads you right from left, going from left right to out of the frame on the right hand side, where hopefully the taxi or their ride would be coming. It's certainly tells a good story here. I like this. I've seen it, and their faces and the situational scene with a good color, as you see in Cuba, was a treat to see. While it was not controllable, I mean, we can't always have the rule of odds. I think a third person with another expression here, and like I said, you have to go by what you stumble upon, would have added a bit more impact to the image. I like the image. It's a sight to behold when you see it in real life. And with that being said, I scored this a 14.
Quiet time.
Quiet. Now, quiet. We don't keep it. Oh, quiet time. Okay. I mean, this is an image that really makes you wonder what the couple is thinking. Are they just viewing and taking in the scenery? You know, appropriate title, quiet time. You know, are they reminiscing? Is there something out there they're focusing their attention upon? I like this image, and I felt that it could be improved. Let me see. I lost. Relax it. I thought, you know, and this is an image where I wanted to add that you don't always have to see the faces of people, I mean, just to get impact from the image. I thought this image could be improved if the if we saw something in the distance that the couple may have been looking at. Okay, it would have still been quiet time, but you know, it makes you wonder, which can be a good thing as well. And I also thought that if what I did on my screen to help improve the image, if we crop just a little bit down the left-hand side and maybe, you know, just a little bit across the bottom, would pull you right into, you know, that couple, and would just have a little more impact as to the title as it resonates with the subjects as presented. And with that being said, I scored this a 14.
The Old West.
The Old West. Okay. Now, in this image, I mean, I love this image. Okay. In documentary, you're not permitted to use setups and or studio shots. Being, you know, from Florida, we realize that this is something that takes place at Dry Creek. You know, that gentleman's in a lot of photos that, you know, have been presented in F3C. I'm not going to take anything away from the photo at all. It would be considered, you know, that it would tell a story naturally in real life, but it is basically an outdoor setup, and also, I mean, a setup and an outdoor studio shot. But so personally, I think it would be better suited for color. The intensity on this man's face, is holding the gun, the position of the rifle, and the long knife, and also whatever, I guess that's another gun or whatever in front of him. I like, you know, how colors complement one another. I like his position in the frame. Like I said, you know, I accepted this in documentary, but I feel as though in F3C that it would be better presented in color, but it's a wonderful image. And with that being said, I scored it a 15. Great expression on his face and determination.
Inspirational feelings.
Inspirational feelings. I like the people on the left. I'm going to give a quick comment. I like the gentleman staring at the pictures or whatever's presented on the wall. The light in the background, even though it's a little blown out, I like, and the way it's coming in. However, since this is documentary, monochrome images do not qualify, so I cannot score this image.
Hydroplane approaching finish line.
Hydroplane. Yeah, I love this image. I just think it tells a wonderful story. I mean, the way that water blast is coming from the hydroplane vehicle there in the front and just going back along with the splash is wonderful. You see the head of the driver. It's just, I mean, it has great focus, great color. The action was stopped here. It tells a nice story. You know, hydroplane approaching is certainly an appropriate title. I thought something like "To the Finish" with an exclamation point might have a little more impact, but there was nothing really wrong with hydroplane approaching. I thought for improving, maybe a little more room in the front for that hydroplane to sail in. I mean, they are quick moving vehicles, so a little more water if, whatever type lens you had, you may not have been able to do that, but a little more water to sail or hydroplane into would have actually benefited the overall impact, I think. But I just couldn't get away from, this image, and I really loved looking at it, and I scored it a 17.
Young busker and his aide de camp.
Yes, I enjoyed looking at this image, with the boy sitting, and I don't know if he was guarding the money or if he was next to play. I like the intent look on the boy playing, the violin, I guess it is, or whatever. But again, with this being in documentary as a monochrome image, I could not score it because of its ineligibility for presentation.
A day of races.
Day of the race, something we all probably would enjoy, or some of us anyway. I thought this was an interesting photo. I like seeing people interacting with one another, which I thought was very nice. I was kind of surprised that here you have, the post parade of the horses and the race, and it seems as though not many people were actually interested in any of those horses. They were more interested in talking with one another, and socializing. But that actually made me smile, so that's kind of a good thing. It seemed a bit hazy or grainy in this photo. I'm not sure. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of blue, so it doesn't seem like it's naturally presented. So with that being said, and the aforementioned items that I stated, and the possible processing issue, I scored it an 11.
Clearing the hurdle.
Clearing the hurdle. Great story here. Great focus, good detail, and the rider and the horse, the jumping over that. I forget what they're called when they do that. I like the fact that you could capture this action with everything being sharp. I mean, the intensity of the rider and even the eye position and intensity of the horse really actually added to the impact of this image. I would have liked just to have seen a little more room for the horse to jump into in the front, because when they're moving that fast, you want to allow I might have even cut off a little bit of the back and added on the left and added a little bit to the front, if possible, when you were there. But I really, really enjoyed looking at this image. I scored it a 16.
Bridge restoration.
Bridge restoration. Here I see good detail in the bridge, in the the wood, making the bridge. I like that I even had that little sign there, that said, the name of the bridge, and don't go too fast if you're driving, make it like you're doing a walk or whatever. I thought that was cool and added to the story being told. It could have just been actually the lane of the bridge. The bridge appears a little bit distorted, which or leaning, and that could actually be either the lens that was used or also how that bridge is, because the title does say bridge restoration. I think to add impact to this image, to see maybe people approaching or even in the bridge, unless it was closed off, which it doesn't appear to be, would have added more impact and add to the story of this image. And with that being said, I scored it a 12.
All right. Digital monochrome. Newfoundland Pier.
Newfoundland Pier. I really, really like the leading lines of this image by way of the pier, how it draws you right into, the water and up to the rays of the sun. I also enjoyed seeing the land formations on the left of the image because I think not only do they act as leading lines, but they also act as framing. I think it was a very interesting cloud formation and there was good detail in this image and texture in the wood of the pier. It was an interesting sunburst of rays. I think that to improve this image, I may have cropped out, wait a minute, hold on, please. Oh, I would have possibly added a bird. I'm sorry, that said that. To the scene here, maybe in the upper left or a couple birds, if you can do it and keep the natural or realistic part of the image. I think there's a little space in the upper left-hand corner that doesn't allow for continued interest. I've never seen an interesting cloud formation like that, but and also if not putting any birds or something in it, if there were a couple people sitting on the end of the pier, which I realize we don't always have control over, I just think it would have added interest to the image overall. I really like this image, and with that being said, I scored it a 14. Oh, the other thing I said I meant to mention, which I had that, was I would have liked to have seen part of the sun above, you know what I'm saying? Not just the rays, just actually part of the sun, even if it was only a quarter of the sun's circular, geometric shape at the top of the image as well.
Best friends.
Best friend. Okay, best friends. Who doesn't like a human being and a dog interacting? There's action going on in this photo, which certainly adds interest to it. To me, to improve, there's too much negative space and nothing going on behind the gentleman and his dog. I would have liked, the man to be possibly back a little bit more or else crop, part of the right-hand section off. I would have also liked to have seen the dog be a bit more distant, to run and fetch what the man was throwing. I think his position is just a bit close to the man. And then, of course, I'd expect to see a little more space as he would go into the water. Overall, it was a nice image. I just think those things that I had mentioned could help enhance it. With that being said, I scored this a 12.
Wild West Willie.
Wild West Willie. Okay. Wild West Willie. I like the body position in this image. I think it tells a good story. I like the intensity in the eyes as he looks at the photographer, as the photographer's making the image and taking his picture. It looks like we have another image come up. Looks like the same guy as Uncle Festus. Kind of interesting. Could be the same maker. That doesn't really matter. However, the mouth and the beard appear more in focus in this image than the eyes. I think they're a little dark there. Of course, the brim of the hat is going to cause shading. I think some fill flash may have improved, this image and given us the opportunity to see more of the spark in his eyes. And the other thing I think would have enhanced this image is to darken the foliage in the background and also the wood or missing aluminum siding or whatever just above his hat. And the only other thing I could suggest is his left arm is really pulling for attention. It doesn't really add to this portrait, it actually takes away from looking at Wild West Willie's face. So I would probably crop, as a suggestion, right at the shoulder line, so that you would be seeing a little bit of the start of his arm to the end of the suspenders on the left-hand side. So that, because when I did this, I really was drawn into the man, and Wild West Willie, as opposed to the arm trying to get more of my attention. And with that, even possibly cropping just a slight bit on the right. With that being said, I scored this image a 13.
Chickadee's turn at feeder.
Chickadees turn. Okay. I love the expression on this chickadee. I mean, they're pretty fast. Hearing them chirp, going out taking several pictures of birds in my life. I always hear them, but I don't always see them. Sometimes they're hard to get photos of. The thought and expression on this chickadee's face is great. There's nice darks and lights, and allowing for good contrast in this avian subject. I think to improve, again, it's not a natural feeder, and I know it's not always possible, but getting birds in their natural environment, there are some judges that will really, really mark you down if artificial feeders are used. I realize these can be part of life and an opportunity to get, an image of a certain species of bird or whatever. But I think a natural feeding situation would enhance the image. And I think the bird in certain portions of his body appears to be a little bit over sharpened, especially in the feathers. And with that being said, the feeder, I like the angle of it, but it seems with its size, it actually pulls away a bit, in my opinion, from the subject, which is a little chickadee. So with that being said, I scored this a 13.
Sand sculpture with living eyes.
Sand sculpture with living eyes. Okay, here we go. I feel this image is an interesting piece of earthly art. I know it's sand, but it's still part of the earth. I found this to be very interesting. Wow. Plenty of lines, plenty of curves add interest. And in my opinion, nice eyes, the way they are presented and also as included in the title. Now, to me, I seem to see, and I realize when you're talking sand sculptures, you're talking beach, and you're talking maybe a part of the day where there's harsh light. The back of the, whatever that is, I'm trying to think here what I wrote. The worst thing is I make these notes and I can't even read them sometimes. Oh, I may have brushed or cloned on the left-hand side of this image, if you can see it, just by his right eye, as it's presented on the left, there's a little black line streaking through, going to the outer edge of the frame. Wasn't sure what that was, but I would have cloned that out to help improve the image. And also on the I didn't. Oh, the other thing I noticed was I felt that it was a little tightly cropped, not so much with the presentation of the face and even like the lower shoulder part of the sculpture, but the top portion above the head in the sculpture actually touches the frame. So I definitely would have added, for greater impact, a little more space up there. And with that being said, I enjoyed seeing this image. I would have liked to have seen it in person, and I scored it a 15.
Mansion in monochrome.
Mansion in monochrome. Let me guess, I think this is a Cas d'Azan Ringling. And who doesn't love the Cas d'Azan? I don't know if I said the right Cas d'Azan. I mean, I like, a lot about this image. The clouds, I like the building presentation, the composition. I like how the horizontal lower railings actually serve as a frame for this image. I might have liked to have seen the steps leading up. It's all according to what was under the railing, to lead you into the actual image itself as part of like the leading line effect. And I want to get in there, and I have an opportunity to get those steps and go in there. Okay. I think that to improve this image, I'm not sure how the texture of a building was applied, but to me, it takes away from the natural stucco or cement, or how it's presented when I have been there. I think it's a little bit contrasty too. I mean, it certainly is a wonderful image, and I mentioned the composition, the railing serving as framing and all that. But I think it's a little bit over textured, whether it's an effect or a filter. And also with the other things that I mentioned, I scored this a 14.
Lush vegetation.
Lush vegetation. Okay, here we go. Here I see a beautiful, I think in Florida, whether it's Mayaca or wherever, somewhere, scene with plenty of contrast of lights and dark tones. I like the pond lily. As small as it is, that pond lily in the center gave me some attention. The leading lines of the pads drew me from left to right to that little, lily in the middle. And then I went all around the image, the trees, the framing, and the drama in the sky as well. I thought it was well done. Excuse me. I also like the reflections in the water. Reflections are always a good thing, in my opinion, to see. They just do something to the mind that's very appealing. To improve this image, I would have liked to have seen a little more lower foreground. I think that, and a little bit more sky. Foreground, not an absolute necessity. I think you could have even cropped some of the foreground, not much, and added a little bit of sky. I think the treetops are really close to the ceiling of the image, or the top of the image, if you were. So I think a little more sky, more than anything, would have added to the impact of this image. I found it to be really, really well done. I like viewing it even as is here, and I scored it a 16.
Bayfront in the moonlight.
Bayfront in the moon. Okay. This, to me, this image, first of all, the title, I really like Bayfront in the moonlight. We don't have to know what Bayfront it is. Could be Sarasota, who knows? But it certainly is appropriate, for what it is. It's basically sort of stating what it is, but some people who aren't familiar may not even know. But I thought that was basically an appropriate title. I love the drama and strong contrast in this image. It adds appeal to the image overall. I think the foreground is wonderful. And then when we get to the middle ground of the buildings, that is also a good contributing factor. And of course, the background and presence of the threatening or drama in the sky. To me, I thought there is a little bit of, I'm sorry, I would have liked to have seen the water. There's light coming on the center foreground of the water. Now, I'm sure it was coming from the moon, and maybe it was seeping through those clouds in the upper central portion of this figure. But it would have been nice if the maker could have waited a little bit longer, and if those clouds moved, and you would be able to see part of the moon, shining that light on the water. I love the starburst, with the aperture being stopped, stopped down to get that effect. To me, it appears to not be a grainy image. It had great focus, and it wasn't grainy or or pixelate or anything like that. I really, really like this image a lot. And I gave it a 17 or scored it a 17.
Nadine.
Nadine. Okay. Nadine or Nadine, who knows? Anyway, this is a very nice image, a beautiful position of a model. You know, here, this could be somewhat touchy for F3C, but I think it would pass because we don't actually have a woman's breast fully exposed. So it'll probably be okay. I think there's good expression on the model. She seems to have her eyes closed, intently thinking about something. You know, it the lighting is basically good. One thing I found that I thought, in my opinion, might improve this image was her right eyebrow, as presented on the left, is certainly visible, but yet you can't see her eye or even the eyelashes. I think that is a bit of a distraction, and there are some hot spots of light. And I know this is a studio photo or image. There are some hot spots on her face and also on her neck. That can be possibly intentional by the maker, but I don't feel as though it really adds, you know, impact to this image. The other thing I noticed is right behind her hand that's holding up her hair. In that hair, there's something, there's a change in the hair. I don't know what it could be. It appears that it's very crisscrossed or whatever. Is it something that puffs the hair up? I'm not sure, but it certainly is a distraction, in my opinion, to the overall impact of the photo. So, with that being said, I scored this a 15.
Uncle Festus.
Uncle Festus. Is he related to that wild lily? I don't know. But anyway, let me see where I have Uncle Festus. Okay, here I am. Okay, I think this man's expression in this photo is priceless. I mean, that smile, the way he is looking at the photographer. I mean, it's just great in my opinion. There's good contrast with the darks and the lights. I mean, there's texture in the beard. The background is blurred. To me, to improve this image, I feel that the background blur is good, but I may have replaced the entire background here if you could do it retaining a natural and realistic appearance. Also, at the edge of his beard, just below the mouth on the right side, it appears during the blur of the background, the beard is a little chiseled and cut out, indicating that you were unable to blend this really well, which kind of sticks out, you know, compared to the other areas of the beard. Um, I just feel also that the left side of the hat is fully blurred, as is the right side. And then I'm sure it was intentional by the maker, and the front left in pretty full focus, the top being blurred. But the face is what you want to have drawn in. So I'm not saying it's a bad image. I love the image. I would have even probably burned with the burn tool that metal on his what do they call it? Suspenders, you know, the vertical lines of the beard, the vertical lines of the shirt, all things added. It's a wonderful photo. I scored this a 15. Uncle Festus.
A genuine smile.
Now this image here, I love the title, and I mean, nothing is further from the truth. This man, there's something about this image that's totally genuine, and that smile just I don't know, even the sparkle in his eyes. This image really resonated with me. You know, I love the expression on the subject. Those eyes, as I mentioned, are wonderful. There's the grungy appearance. He's happy, strong contrast and tones. I think to improve this image, it is, I mean, the grungy look is good and maybe appropriate for a possible homeless person. I'm not sure. I don't want to judge that. But I think it's just a bit over processed. The brightness of the hat logo also are a bit of a distraction. You know, I look at the face, you know, I look and then I keep seeing cricket and I keep seeing, and I know that was on the hat, but possibly that could be burned just so that it wouldn't pull your attention away from this man's face, because I mean, it speaks volumes. That I mean, I couldn't stop looking at this. Uh, it's just, I can't say anything other with, you know, some of the little imperfections that I thought might be addressed. I still think this is a really wonderful image, and I scored it a 16.
Today's city life.
Okay, today's city life. Okay. I see a nice street photography scene. I like how the light post, well, I call it a light post, it's probably the traffic signal. You know, how it frames here. It's good to see people in this city life scene, and also cars, because, and even the moving car, because that's what city life is about. Okay. I mean, it depicts city life as it really is. I love, you know, uh, excuse me. On the left side, the lower left side, just at the bottom of the frame, I would either crop out that darkened sidewalk, or possibly if you wanted to clone or brush it out or content aware or whatever, to make it similar to the other, because I feel as though as I look at the city scene, I just keep getting drawn to that lower left corner. So either cropping it out or content aware or cloning, whatever would enhance, in my opinion. I think, you know, the only other thing, I think the man's position, if the maker or the photographer could have waited possibly a second longer, if she would have stepped, you know, onto the curb, and there would have been some separation between the man in the background and the woman with the mask, you know, walking. While that's not a deal breaker, I think it would enhance the overall impact of the image. And with that being said, I scored this a 15.
Interesting. The clock is the same time as it is right now.
Sure is. Good catch, Fred.
Looking down the spiral staircase.
Looking down the spiral staircase. I have to tell you, I like the way this image talks to me, and I love where it takes me. I mean, in my opinion, it has a wonderful title, because that's what we're actually seeing here presented. You know, looking down the spiral staircase. I like the contrast in the darks and the light. You know, the texture in the steps. You know, the graininess in the surrounding walls across the top. I feel like I'm actually immersed here, going down and around. I mean, if I might nitpick just a little bit to improve, I think on the bottom, just where that semicircle is, there appears to be a little bit maybe of the top of a door jamb or something. I probably, and like I said, this is just a little nitpick, I probably would have cloned that out and made it look like the rest of that, I don't know, bottom center, just above that half moon there towards the right. And I might have included a little bit of the first step, a little bit more of it. Uh, I may have, and as you see, as you come around, let's go around to the middle, right third, central third. See how there's darkened areas, okay? um, I may have seen what it might be like to darken that fourth one to see how it would appear so that it would have the light in the middle, the dark on the bottom, and the darker step, up at the top that's cut off in a triangular form. But these are just simple things that I thought might enhance the image. I really like it as presented. And with that being said, I scored it a 17. I really like this.
Crystalla in water.
With this one, while it's in monochrome, I feel as though, and I'm just going to give a little briefing here, it's creatively done. Two things: with the creativity as presented, it will not be eligible for the monochrome category in F3C. The other thing is you can see the nipples on the breast, which would also serve as a declination factor for presentation, even in the creative category. So I was unable to score this image.
The Badlands.
The Badlands, the Badlands. Where are you? Where are you? Okay. I love the textures in this image. I like the scene. I mean, the textures, the cracks in the of earth, and the leading diagonal lines, of the land formations there. I also, love the sky. If it's natural, I'm not sure if it's been replaced or not. Part of me looked and thought it as though it had an appearance of a sky replacement. But if it was natural, it's very interesting. Very, very interesting. The foreground, I think, to improve this image, all the other lines, leading lines and diagonals, and all that sort of thing, I think were wonderful. But I just think the foreground takes up half of the image and kind of takes away from what's presented in the background. So to me, to improve this image, I would definitely crop about at least maybe half of the foreground image, maybe a little more if you feel. I know you'd want to leave some cracks, of the earth showing there because I think that adds to the overall impact. But I think there's just too much foreground and we do need somewhat of a crop there. With that being said, I scored this a 14.
La Bella Luna.
La Bella Luna. In Italian, c'è la luna, mentre mare, mamma mia, maritare. Okay, love the title of this image. The moon is beautiful, even saying it in Italian. Great, great detail in this moon. Great detail. I like its position, in the shot. Makes you feel like almost being there, like the moon is a tangible part of the sky. After viewing all the beauty in this moon, I think that you want more. You know how hard it is to get this moonshot, but yet it's the moon that's just presented there. I want to see more. Where can I go next? I would love to have seen stars in the sky. I mean, you don't have to have other planets or whatever. Some small sparkles, maybe a little bit larger sparkles, which would definitely add impact to this. It's great as presented, but it just seems a little static when you look at it and gives you a feeling, in my opinion, of wanting to see more. So with that being said, I scored this a 14. Hats off to the maker for getting all that detail on the moon.
Shedding Velvet.
Shedding Velvet. Okay. To me, this is a great catch or opportunity, to get a moose, especially in the water. Good expression, very interesting expression. I love to see the water dripping, from the shoulders and around the mouth. I thought that was really cool and added impact. To me, for improvement, I just feel like the lighting here was kind of harsh. It may have been in, the middle part of the day. The back of the moose really lacks detail. So if there weren't light shining on there, it appears as though the light source is coming from the left side. I would have still lifted like the shadows or done something with the sliders to get more detail there. And also, as I look at this, vegetation usually adds to an image, in my opinion. But when I put my handy file folder, I just felt as though taking out the vegetation, while most times adding, this became a pano, which I felt had the moose in the rule of third area. Taking out that vegetation, I may have cropped a little on the left, and I think the image would have been vastly improved. But the other items that I mentioned in terms of the lighting, the exposure, the detail, and the back, and so on and so forth, there are good items that I mentioned, or things here in this, and just to catch this, I mean, I think how hard it may have been. So with that being said, I just lost my score here. Shedding Velvet. And with that being said, I scored this a 13. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. On that last one, that was a mistake. On that last one, I scored it an 11.
Next image is Three Sisters.
Three Sisters. I've presented some flowers in black and white in competitions, and on one occasion, and somewhat indicative on the second occasion, I was told that flowers are too beautiful to present in monochrome. But I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I think this is very well done. I like the power of odds, the power of three. These calla lilies here are nicely presented. I like the subdued lighting. To me, for improvement, on the bottom stem in the forefront, there's a little bit of a white line part of the stem. If I was going to have white presented there, I would have had it a little bit lengthened, maybe to the bottom of the other stem, or to brush or clone it out altogether. It's not a major distraction, but your eye does go to the lightest part of any image. The only other thing I would have thought possibly might be improved, that I see light in the center of the two calla lilies on the left and the one on the right. While it is in the center, it's in the lower right-hand portion of the center of the calla lily. So I would have applied light through processing in the center of that one as well for uniformity. But overall, I really love this image. Flowers are beautiful in black and white, and I scored it a 16.
A Walk in City Park.
A Walk in City Park. Okay. I see nice curving lines here. I see beautiful horizontal lines here. I see vertical lines here, all leading to different portions of areas in this image. I see people both from the back, from the front, the foreground people. You see their backs, there are other people seem to be walking towards the front of the image. I feel that they all add to this scene, which is certainly depicted by a walk in the park. I mean, plenty of vertical, horizontal, diagonal, curved lines add to it as well. I think to improve this image, I might consider adding a little more foreground as to see part of the curve where the foreground people are walking. I also would have stood in a different position so that the light post is not growing out of the man's, appear to be growing out of the man on the far right's head. I love seeing the flag. Overall, very nice image. Just those suggestions, I think, to help improve. I scored this a 14.
I guess that concludes the competition.
Did we do all of them?
We did them all.
We did them all. That was a lot of images, 80 images. I will say I've done 3 competitions this month, and Sarasota had the most images, but they have a lot of good photographers here. So that could be part of the reason.
I appreciate your time and your effort, and I know you put your heart and soul into this.
I do.
And I'm sure there'll be some images, some questions that'll come along. So from B. Carlson to everyone, thank you. From Pete Mercury, Jack, thanks so much. Good to see you. Fair judging, Pete. Carl
Okay,
Super, thank you. Was very informative. Richard Duckworth, thank you, Jack. And somebody else screwed. No, just kidding.
Well, I'd like to give a verbal comment. I thought your judging was very fair. It was very honest, and I think sincere. So thank you for your comments, Jack. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob.
And, Jack,
I tried.
Just to satisfy your curiosity, that stained glass window with the butterflies was mine.
That one is yours?
Yeah.
I didn't know whose they were, but
I know you didn't, because you said something about it this afternoon, but I wasn't gonna, tell you then. That would have been.
I thought well, are we off recording now?
We're still recording.
Because I don't know if I, as a judge, should mention that there could be an image I might have known the maker of. So I think that would not really be an integral
No, I didn't
part.
fess up. And by the way, that stained glass window was from that Redeemer Lutheran Church on 674.
Oh, that's not far from me.
Yeah, they have some beautiful stained glass windows in there, and I found that
check it
particular
out.
window intriguing, which is why. And yes, all those other butterflies were mine. So,
I was going to name them because I was a lepidopterist in my younger days when I could run and chase them for miles.
well, I would have named them just because I'm compulsive, but that's a whole other story.
I didn't know the one with the green. Of course,
That's
I
a
didn't know
that's a malachite butterfly.
Malachi. Okay.
Yeah.
I never caught one. But I didn't know that. I didn't think that. I mean, I didn't suspect really any image might have been somebody's, but per se, but that one, I had no idea,
All right, Jeff just signed off. Bagwell just signed off, and I think we'll lose everybody. Jack, thank you so much.
Thank you. And
I don't know about you, but I have to go take my doggie out for a walk.
as do I. Thanks again.
God
Have a
bless
great
you all.
night.
Drive safely.